A healthy diet is one of the most important habits that you can ever build. But have you ever tried to track all your meals and their nutrients? It gets overwhelming and tedious real quick. But it doesn't have to be that way. Today, I have something for you to replace these tedious food logs once and forever. Imagine simply writing down what you ate and then having AI automatically break down all the details about your nutrition. Sounds good? Then keep watching, because in this video I'm going to show you an AI-powered system built in Notion that you can use for weight loss, bulking, or any other nutritional goal that you have. Best of all, it's super simple to build and you can customize it to your exact specific needs. So let's get started. First, a quick overview over the weight loss system in Notion. It all starts by you adding meals to Notion. And then we will send these meals to ChatGPT to fill out the nutritional data for the individual items. Then in Notion, we will build an analytics widget that shows us an overview over how our nutrition data stacks up over several days to compare to our goals. And then last but not least, we will send the roundup of our meals of every week to ChatGPT again to get a personalized analysis of what we've eaten that week. Now, the cool thing is at every step of the way, right, you can personalize and individualize it to your specific needs. So if you're not interested in weight loss, but instead into bulking or like a completely different nutritional goal, you can easily adapt these different modules to fit your needs. And here's how all of this looks in Notion. Now, to build all this yourself in your own Notion, you need 4 things. First, a database backend to record all your meals. Second, an automation that will pull all the nutritional information via ChatGPT. Third, an analytics widget. And number 4, another automation to create, based on all the things that you ate, a personalized review and analysis. Over the next few minutes, I'll show you how to build each of these modules and how to adapt it to your own personal nutrition goals. But if you don't want to build it yourself, then check out the link in the description where I have a template linked for you. Step 1, your database backend. It consists of 2 pretty simple databases. First, My Days, which is for now just a database with a name field and a date field. And then My Meals with a name field, then a type field for snacks, dinner, lunch, and breakfast. That is not strictly necessary, but it helps if you want to categorize things. And then a number property for calories, fat, protein, and carbs. Pretty standard so far. Now, once you have that, you want to start connecting these 2 databases. So what we'll do is we create a relation between the 2. So relation, and we connect it to My Days. And then that way we have an easy way to connect our individual entries to the day to just show, okay, this meal was eaten on that day. We're going to fill it with a bit of sample data in a second, but before we do that, let's actually set us up for easier data entry. And in order to do that, we will head over to My Days and we will create a new template. So in this new template, we can type add and then today and pick date when duplicated. That will automatically add the correct timestamp whenever we duplicate this. And then, because we also want to fill out the date property and we can't have here a dynamic entry, we need to use a quick workaround. We need to turn our date property for a second into a text property. And then again, go in here, type add today, date when duplicated, and then go back to our text property and turn it back into a date property. That seems a bit weird, but trust me, it works, even though it doesn't look like it because it's empty now. But when we create a new entry in a second, you'll see that it automatically fills everything correctly. And then in the body of the page, we can just create some linked databases for us to easier do data entry. Now, if we want to also like separate things into breakfast, dinner, lunch and dinner, we can add some headings. So we can say, okay, an H1 for breakfast, then an H1 for lunch, and last but not least, an H1 for dinner. Could of course also have snacks, but let's keep it with a 3. And then under each, we create a linked database view. So we type /create for linked view of database, and then we pick My Meals. And then we say new empty view. We want a table view. We don't want to show the database title to keep it a bit more minimal. And then we can click on done here. And then in the properties, we don't want to see anything, right? Because we will just add a name and all the other things will be filled by ChatGPT. But the thing that we need to do is we need to make sure that this automatically gets linked to that day. And we can do that through a self-referential filter. So we click on filter, add advanced filter. And then where it says My Days, we say contains and then today. So this page title from the template. And that way, whenever we enter something here, it will automatically be connected to whatever page we are on currently. If that is confusing, check out my database tutorial in the description where I have a long section on self-referential filters. And the second thing that we actually want to set up here is to make sure, because it's under breakfast, right, that it automatically fills out the breakfast tag. So we go to type is breakfast. And that ensures that like everything here will be tagged with breakfast. And then we can just duplicate this thing twice, right? And then put them under the other two headings, so one under lunch and one under dinner, and just do the exact same thing there. We just need to like modify the filter slightly, right? So we change lunch to lunch and then dinner to dinner. And that way, right, when you do your data entry, you can automatically simply add entries in here, and they will be automatically connected to the template and to everything. Now, one last thing, if you want to have a new entry for this every day, you want to make sure that you go in here and first set today as a default entry, so it will be applied whenever you add something. And then you can also click on the three dots and set a repeat to every day, and every day it automatically creates an entry for you, so you don't need to do that manually, and then you can just fill out the meals by clicking into it and adding them to the template. One last step before we move on to the automation. We want to fill it with some sample data, so I just added a today entry and then a last week entry, and then I just duplicated the same 3 dishes, chia seeds, cold pasta salad, and barbecue pork 9 times, so that we have some entries in here, and connected 3 of them to today and the other ones to last week. Of course, usually it would be different days, but just for the sake of the presentation, this is fine. And one thing we need to do, we need to add like a small formula to make sure that we know when it should like add information here. But don't worry, super simple. We just add a property here called formula, and we call it get data ? And then in the formula, we just type empty, open bracket, and then take calories or any of the other fields, close it, and that is then automatically checked as long as nothing is in calories. And once our automation fills out the information, it will be unchecked, just so that our ChatGPT automation doesn't like fill out the same data twice. Step 2, the automation that pulls the nutrition information from ChatGPT. For the automation, you will need an API key from OpenAI, and it's super simple to get, and you get some free credits, so you can easily run this a long time without ever having to pay for it. Go to the link that I show here on screen, or the one that is linked in the description, create an account, and then once you're logged in, head on over, click on Personal in the top right corner, and then on View API Keys. There you'll have the option to create a new API key. You want to create it, you want to show it, and then you want to copy it. And that API key you should save somewhere secure, where you can definitely access it again, because once you close that context window, it will be gone. And if you forget a key, you would have to create a new one. Also not the worst, but you would have to go through the steps again. And yeah, just save it somewhere, because we will need it in a second for the next step. Last preparation step, you need an account at Make. Make is my automation platform of choice. They are amazing. They have a great visual builder, and most importantly, they have a very generous free plan. So you will be able to build this automation without having to pay for anything. So head on over to the link in the description and create your account, and then I'll see you for the next step. Once you're logged into Make, this is what you will see. Click on Create a New Scenario in the top right corner, and then we can quickly name it, right, to something like our weight loss system in Notion as the first automation. And then we can click on the big purple button in the middle to add our first module. We want to start with Notion, so we type for Notion, search for it, and then add the search objects module. Now, if this is your first time using Make together with Notion, you will have to connect Notion. So you will click on Add, and then you will go through the flow to authorize your workspace. Once that's done, you can select your workspace, and then you can search for the database ID. Now, important to note, during the authorization process, you'll have the option to give Make access to certain Notion pages. If you already gave it access to the relevant page, perfect, then you can just proceed. If not, you will quickly need to head over to Notion to give it access to the very specific page with your databases, so it can actually find it here. To do so, click on the 3 dots in the top right corner, and then, I move myself out of the way, at the very bottom, add connections. And then you can search for Make. I will search for Integromat because it's the old name in my system, but Make will be a name for you. And then you can click on Confirm. And now it has access to these pages and can actually read the data here. So that means we can head over back to Integromat, and we can just open this again, and we can click on Search and then type in the name of our database. So in my case, it's my meals. So I click on OK, and then I wait for a second, and then it hopefully finds it. It still needs a second. Sometimes if you just gave it access, then it takes a second. So I will click on Save here, Save Anyway, and then refresh the page. And after that, it should be able to find it. So then click again into it, onto our module, switch to our workspace, and then again, search for my meals. Okay. And that should resolve the issue. Sometimes it just takes like a few seconds. Yeah, so here we have now my meals, and then click on it and it loads in the info. So now it asks us, okay, filter which information should it retrieve from the database. And we want everything where our get data formula is positive. So here in the operators, we will scroll down until we see the formula operators, and then checkbox equals, and then true. And down here, just for testing purposes, we can, for the beginning, leave it at 1, so it will only process one entry at a time. We can click on OK, then right-click this, and then say run this module only. And then ideally it should pull in some information. So we see output, one bundle, property values, nothing here, but under name, under one, we have plain text barbecue pork with coleslaw and sweet fries. Awesome. So this step works. Next up, we want to send that information to ChatGPT to get our nutritional data. In order to do that, we add another module. We search for OpenAI, and then we opt for this module, and we want to create a completion. Now, again, you want to go through the same process. You want to click on add to add your connection, and this is where you'll need the API key from previously. So here you will then, in the onboarding flow, it will ask you to paste that key in, and then if you have any issues, you can click on the online help. That is very good, and you can see how to create that connection. Once that is done, you can select your method, create a chat completion, that's correct. And then for our model, we want to use GPT-4, that's the latest model. If you watch this at a later time and it has a more modern one, pick that one. But for us, that does the job. And then we want to add our messages. Now we have to add 2 messages. We have to add one system message, that is the sort of larger context of it, and then a user message, which is the actual prompt. So that's like the equivalent to what you would type into the ChatGPT interface. For the system message, what I like to do is just take the same content that we usually use for context setting in a shorter form and add it here. So in our case, what I would add is something along the lines like this. You are a nutrition expert who provides nutrition data for food. You answer only with JSON containing the macronutrient split. Now, the specific answer format is important because that will help us to process the information later. But you see, just a very generic context setting. And then for the second one, for the user prompt, here is where we want to be a bit more detailed about what it is that we actually want. And here, the prompt that I'm using is this one. You're my nutrition expert. Your job is to look at a meal and tell me a rough macronutrient split. We're not given any details about the serving sizes. Make assumptions based on a typical serving of each. Now, here's where you can tweak it, right? If you know like your serving sizes are always X or so, or you know like you are a specific person, and you could add that information for it to make better guesses. But otherwise, or like you can just like add the serving size to the meal when you record it, but it's just a fallback here. Then we tell it to only answer in JSON. We give it a sample answer, and then in the bottom we again tell it to only answer in JSON. Now don't worry, you don't need to write the prompt from here. In the blog post that I have linked in the description, I have the full prompt, so you can just copy paste it from there. Now here, this black thing I'm going to remove for a second. This is where we dynamically pull in our information from Notion from previous step. In order to do so, you see here, these are all the data points that we got from here. So we scroll down until we see under property value. So if you don't have it open, toggle it open. And then under name, we toggle that open. And then we want to get the plain text. And we just add it between our 2 quotation marks. And then we click on OK. And then we can run this once just to see whether it works properly. And we should get back from ChatGPT a JSON object with the specific nutritional values for our dish. Let's click on here and inspect under choices, 1 and then message. We have here content, perfect. And we have our JSON object with all the correct values. So also that step works. We're nearly done. Now all we need to do is to pass that JSON to make it usable and then send it back to Notion. And in order to do that, we click again on add another module. We search for JSON, and then we have this module by make. And then we click on pass JSON. We don't need to pick a data structure. We simply click in here. That opens again, our options. And under choices, we pick the message and then the content, and that will automatically process. So we click again on run once. We ignore the error. And then again, just to see that everything works properly, you will see that once this has passed, we get actually a usable thing here. So you see we have now our individual aspects and can access them as such. So we click again on add another module, add a Notion module, update a database item. And here we have our workspace automatically filled. We click again on search and again search for our My Meals database, or you can just copy the ID from the other module. Wait a second, opt for that. And then we tell it to update our record. Now in order to do so, first we need to tell it which database item to update, and it's the one, of course, that got found here. So we look now here under page ID, you see you have now the information from Notion, the information from ChatGPT, and the information from the JSON model here. But we want the page ID. And then we don't want to change these things, but under carbs, we want to map then total carbs Under calories, we want to map total calories. Under fat, total fat. And under protein, total protein. And then we can click on OK. Run it one last time to test it. And then head on over back to Notion to see whether it actually has properly populated and we have our data in there. So let's go in here and check. Yes, calories, fat, protein, and carbs. Amazing. One last thing to do here, because before we can move on, we need to schedule this so it runs automatically. And for that, we need to do two things. First, you want to click again on the first module and change the limit to whatever your typical daily entries are, right? So if you assume, okay, you have 3 main meals and maybe 2 or 3 snacks, that means like 6 entries or so. I would set a limit to 10, right? Just to give you a bit of buffer. Don't worry if the limit is too high, that's not really an issue, but if it's too low, it won't process all the information, right? So we click on, we add 10, click on OK, and then for where it says every 15 minutes, we change that to every day, pick a specific time that we like, click on OK, and then you can toggle on this like scheduling button in the bottom left corner, and that way, after you hit save, very important, and that way it will run once a day automatically and update all your things based on the input that you gave it. Step 3, building your analytics widget. Our analytics widget actually needs a separate database. So we will click down below and we click type /database. And this one can be called analytics. And in here, we only need one entry. We can call this insights. And then in the insights database, we need a relation to our daily entries, right? So days, we can call it. And then we connect it as a relation to the my days database. We show it on both sides and then click add. Now this will add our connection up here. And one thing that's very important for analytics to work is that every entry here needs to be connected to analytics. So of course I can go in here and add them now manually, but that's of course pretty annoying. So what we want to do is we want to go into our template here and edit it and modify it to always automatically fill also this as a connection to insights. That way we don't have to worry about doing that manually. Great. Now that that's set up, we can actually start grabbing our information. Now, one thing that we haven't done here on the My Days page yet is to aggregate actually the information from the individual meals, right? We have our data now in here, thanks to the automation, but we don't see our total for the day. So let's start by doing that and then add it into the analytics widget. I will only do that for one of the 4 entries, but you would simply repeat the process for all the other macronutrients that you want. So we click on plus, and then we pick first a roll-up, and we call this total calories. And then we can create our relation to my meals. And then we want to pick the calories value, and we want to show the sum. Now we can close this, and now you see, okay, so the entries, the fake entries that we have here means that today we had 1,460 calories, and last week we had like 3K calories, which of course is not accurate, but I mean, we just duplicated some entries. But that's the start already. So we now have our total values here and can see, okay, at a glance today, this is my value. Now we will click on plus and we'll set up some helper properties for our analytics widget. The first thing we need to do is we need to have some helper properties to check whether an entry is this week or not. So here, this is actually like the wrong date. Let's pick a date from last week. And then we create a new formula property. And this one will check, is it this week? Again, all formulas will be always updated in the blog post, so you can check there if you need any information on how to type them. This one is pretty simple. If we use format date and give it a date like now, and then type a large W, we actually get the calendar week, right? So the 32nd calendar week currently. And then we can like do an equal sign and compare it to the date that we have in our date property. So date, also large W, and close it off. And now we see, nice, we have a checkbox when it's this week, and we don't have a checkbox if it's not this week. Now, if you want to compare your performance from this week to last week, you would need a second property, right? So we create another formula property. Actually, let's just duplicate this. That's a bit easier. And we will call this one last week, question mark. And in the formula, we, in theory, right, what we just would need to do is check whether now -1 equals this one. But unfortunately, the result here is a string. So we need to first format this as a number. To do so, we simply type in front of it to number, open brackets and close brackets around the whole thing. And that way, that transforms it now to a number. We still get an error because now the other thing is not a number, right? So we can't compare. So we here as well, we do to number, open bracket, close bracket, and that way we have our finished formula, and you see last week is now checked. And if we were to move this further away than last week, somewhere here, it would stop being checked. So everything works properly. Now, these are just helper properties. You could also roll them up into the formula that we're building now, but this way it's a bit easier to read and write. The main thing that we need for analytics to work is this formula. Again, we want to call this calories last week. And then we click on edit. And now we want to say if our this week thing is checked, if it's equal to true, then please fill calories, otherwise fill 0. Oops. And then we duplicate this once, and we do this also for calories. Oops, that was wrong, like calories this week. We have an error here, so this one should have been from last week, right? So we need to go in here, and instead of this week, this should be last week. Okay, now it's correct. And as you can see, it fills now 0 or the value. And with 2, this doesn't make so much sense, but once we have several entries, right? So let's just duplicate our today entry 3 times. It makes a lot more sense in a second, because it will help you to then roll up the total values for today, or for like the days in a specific week, into your analytics and see the total values. Now let me show you what I mean, then it becomes a bit clearer. We go now down to analytics, and here we can create a roll up, and we can call this again total calories, and our roll up will be from days, and here we pick calories this week. And we can say sum. Actually, let's call this total calories this week, and then duplicate it again, and then total calories last week, from last week, and also show the sum. Awesome. And as you can see, now it makes sense, because now we can roll up the total values here into this and then easily compare them here. Now, this is the process for calories. If you want to do this now for all values, what you would need to do is to replicate the calorie step with the roll up here, then these 2 formulas, so like protein last week, protein this week, and then do these 2 roll ups. The helper formulas, those you only need to do once, right? They apply to all, but these ones you can just duplicate and then adapt to your other values. The one last thing that we need to do now is to make this actually pretty, right? And this you have the insights, but it doesn't look good. So we click again on plus. One last formula, and this one you can call display calories, and we can edit our formula, and we can say something like concat. That's how we combine several strings, and we can write calories, and then we can close it off with the quotation marks, and we add a plus. That's how we combine it with something else, and we want to combine it with the total calories for this week. Now we can't write this because this is a number right now, so we need to again format it to a string. And to do so, we type format, open brackets, and then total calories this week, close it off, and then again a plus sign, and then we can do something like versus, and then again a plus sign, and then format, this time to total calories last week, close everything off, and now we see calories 4,380 versus the 3,000 from last week. We can also add an emoji in here if we want, right? We could do something like the fire icon, and could also add more context in here, but I think that's good for now. And then we have our actual display. Last but not least, in order to make it look like in the demo, we want to turn this into a gallery view. So we click on here, properties, oops, sorry, not on properties, on layout, and then on gallery. And here, I'll move myself out of the way, we turn off show database title, we turn off the card preview, and the card size can be large for now. And then we will go to our properties and turn on the display property. And there you have it. Here are your analytics that will automatically update based on the values in here. Again, you would go through the same steps to add the other ones also below here. And then you have your insights across your whole week for everything that you ate. And step 4, the review automation. To create this report, we need a new automation. So I have created a new scenario in Make. And again, I click on the plus button and add Notion as the first module. And again, we want to search objects. Now we will again pick our workspace, and we want to pick again our My Meals database. But before we can set our filter, we actually need to head back to Notion to quickly update it. So let's click on OK here, and then just click on OK there and close this off for now. And we go back to Notion. And then in My Meals, we add a new property, and we can just turn this into a checkbox. And this checkbox can be called got reviewed? ? Okay, it can be unchecked, that's no problem. We will check it in the automation at the end to just like, again, not take several entries twice. And then we can head back, can open this again. And now if we click on our filter thing, we will have the new property got reviewed, and we say this time it's the checkbox thing. So here equals, and then false, right? It should be unchecked for us to pull it in. Again, let's have all values for now. That's good. We run this once, pull in the values just to see that it works. Awesome, we have all our bundles. Now, the next thing is to turn all these individual bundles into one long list, right? So that we can give ChatGPT a long list of everything we ate and ask it, please review this. There are several views to achieve that in Make, but this is a very easy one. To do so, we get our tools, and then we say get variable. We haven't defined the variable, but don't worry, that works. So we can call this meals, click on OK, and then again, click on tools, and this time set a variable. It's a weird order to first get a variable and then set it, but it will make sense in a second. As a name, type in meals. Don't click on here because this pulls not in the name meals, but the value of it, which is nothing at the moment. And then for the variable value, what we want to do is pull in whatever it got here, enter, and then go down to name and put in the plain text. Now, what this does is it will take the first bundle, it will check the variable my meals, which is empty for the first value, and then add the name of it. Then it will come back here, it will take the second value, and it will update, will get the new value of it, which has now one value, go here, add the second value, and so on, right? This is basically a loop that keeps on adding this thing to the list until it's done. We could also like run this once, right? Just to show you how it works. So we click on run, and then we'll go through, we go here, and at the very end, if we inspect our last value, you see all our meals are listed now below. Awesome. Then with that list, what we want to do is we want to send it to ChatGPT. So we click again on add another module, and then on open AI, create a completion, select our thing. But before we set this up, one thing that we need to do, let's close this. We need to make sure that it doesn't do that every single time, because if we were to do that right now, it would every single time create a completion with the variable. So we would get 10 different reports, which is not what we want. We only want to report at the end. So we can click on here on the filter and say question mark done. And our condition will be that we only want to process once all values have come in the list. And as you can see, Notion gives us a total number of bundles, so 9 total dishes were found, and the current bundle that's processed, so the first one, right? So we want to make sure that the current value, and then not text operator, but our numeric operator, is equal to the total value of bundles. And that will ensure that it only passes to the next step once all these steps here are completed. So time to set up our prompts. We click on this, and then in here we will, again take our GPT-4 module, and we set our 2 messages. First the system, and then the user. This time slightly different, right? Again, you can get all the prompts from the blog post. The system thing here will be your nutrition expert who provides personalized nutrition recommendations based on someone's goals and meals. So you see generic someone's goals and meals. So you want to update that to actually your personal goals, right? Is it weight loss? Is it a specific target weight? Is it like something completely different, right? Like, so go in there and adjust these prompts to your specific needs. And then you only respond in HTML email body format. That's because we want to send a report to ourselves via email. If you want something else, right, text, also you could remove that or not have it, or if you want to add it to Notion. But for this purpose, we have, again, a specific format. And then the user message, slightly longer, and again, much more need for you to adapt that to your personal needs. Here I say, I need your help as a nutrition and health expert. I've logged the meals that I ate last week. Can you have a look at them and provide me with a general analysis of my nutrition? Again, go in here, add your specific needs, add your specific situation, give context, right? If you have dietary restrictions, hard word to say, if that's the case, add them here. If you, I don't know, have 2 kids and not a lot of time, add that maybe here. And then make sure, right now I tell it to read through it and just give a general feedback, and then give me 3 tips based on that to improve next week. But you could also ask it, right, to give me 3 recipes that I could cook. Tell me 3 things on my list that I should not eat next week, right? These sort of things. Feel free to adapt that. And then just make sure that meals is here. So again, what you would do if it's not already in here, you would just go here, click on the tools from 3 important, that's the latest value. And then you have all the things in here and can click on OK. We can click on run once just to test it. Now this one will take a while, so let's give it a second to load. Okay, there we have it. We can again click on inspect and just check under choices and then the message content. We have the HTML tags. So dear client, right, you can also personalize that, like how should it call you? Thanks for sharing the details of your meals. Wonderful, I see you're incorporating a mix of proteins, carbs, da da da. Very nice, very nice. However, da da da, okay, we get our feedback. And yeah, they do like variation, that is true. We just copy pasted the same 3 meals all the time. So fair, that is definitely something we could improve. Last but not least, let's send it to us via email, add another module. And here we search, you can either use Gmail, right, if you have Gmail, or if not, you can use a general mail account. The instructions, where to send an email, to connect it are here under the online help for your own individual provider. So just click on add and authorize you again. And then I want to send this to my email, hello@matthiasfrank.de. And then my subject line, your nutrition report is ready. And then as a content, we fill in the value that we got here from choices under message content. And as you can see, HTML, that's why we have this weird format. Then we can click on OK. And one last step, just to make sure that we don't take our Notion information twice, right? We click on Notion, update the database item, pick our My Meals database, load it, and we just want to check that checkbox, right, that we added to make sure that we don't keep repeating information for the same entries over and over again. So database item will be the one that found in the beginning, and then nothing here needs to be done. Got reviewed, that needs to be on yes. All the other things we can leave empty. We can click on OK, and then we can run it one last time and then jump into our email to see whether it all worked out. So here's our report for the week. Dear valued client, that's very nice and has reviewed the things. This time it gave it back to us in like this table format. That's another thing, right, where you want to do some prompt engineering and adapt it to the specific way that you want your report to look like. Otherwise, this will happen, right, that sometimes the report looks one way, sometimes another, but just go into the prompt and adapt it to the way you want it to look. But yeah, diversify our protein sources, opt for healthier cooking methods, okay, and choose whole grains, right? Again, bit generic tips here. You would need to, because we told it, right, be general. So, but if you go in and tell me, okay, give me specific tips for my life situation and your life situation, this will get a lot better and a lot more tailored to your unique situation. One thing that I actually made a quick mistake, just realized that because we have only one thing here at the end, we can't have the module for the update database here. So we actually want to delete that and we want to add it then here before like the ChatGPT thing happens, right? So we want to right click this, add a module. Now actually before even let's remove this, before the filter, so we can click, I think on this side, that should actually add it on this side. No, okay, doesn't want to. Let's delete it again. Then we add it here, add a module, and the Notion one and the one to update the database item, right? Just so that it happens for all of them. Otherwise, it only happens for the last one, and that's not what we want. So just go through the same step, My Meals, and then hit the checkbox there. Time to beautify our Notion page a bit so that it looks nicer. To do so, let's hit enter here and first create 2 columns. And on the left column, we can just add a callout. And in this one, we could paste our tips from ChatGPT. So tips of the week, right? Just to make sure we actually remember what ChatGPT wants to tell us. We can drag this space in here, and now we can paste as much as we want into callout as we want. And then on the other side, we could just drag our insights, right? Again, mine only has 1. But yours would have 4. Now, one thing that's a bit annoying, there's no way to perfectly line up these 2 things. That's a bit annoying with the callout and the gallery. We can try a bit with our space here, but as you can see, just no way to get it right. So my OCD is not very happy, but we'll make do with it. And then below it, we can grab some new lines. So let's grab this line here. And then here we can again add 2 columns. And then in one, we can call this My Days. And in the other side, we can call this My Meals. We can drag our 2 databases below them and then just beautify them a little bit. So My Days, let's hide the database title. Same for My Meals. And then here under Days, what we can do is we can turn off actually most properties, right? All we need to see here actually are the total calories. And then if you have like more values, right, you would show all of them. So you can just at a glance see, okay, today, these are the calories that I had, this is the protein, this is the fat, blah, 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 everything that you had. And then you might want to say something like, okay, and only show me like the last 10 entries, right? And we would sort it then by date and descending. That way the newest 10 entries are the top, and like after 10, they all get removed and they don't keep showing up. And on meals, we can do something similar. First, we actually, in order to have dates here to sort by, what we probably want to do is create a new property. So let's click on new property here and let's do a roll up. And let's just grab the day from the date from the day that's connected to. So we call this date and the relation will be my days. And here we want to show the date as the original. We can hide it, we don't need to see it. We can actually hide also here most of the things. The only thing really that we want to see is probably the dish. And then if we want to have like the individual values, we could turn on calories, fat, protein, carbs, resize them a little bit so we see them all on one screen as far as we can. And then we have last but not least our sort again, right? So we sort by the date, descending, and then here as well turn on our load limit of 10 pages so we don't have more in there. And that way you have on the left your days, right, on the right your meals, and whenever you want to add something you can just click into it, and then here, right, breakfast, lunch, dinner, you can just add them here and they will automatically appear. We don't see anything here right now, right, because we filter for breakfast and nothing here is set to breakfast, but if I were to remove that filter, you would see all the entries that we have for that day. With all these building blocks in place, all that's left for you is to personalize your setup to your own nutritional goals. For example, you could expand your nutrition tracker with a second pillar, which is also crucial for health: workouts. I actually have a video that showcases a simple workout tracker in Notion. Just click here and I'll see you in a few seconds.